The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Celeste Hotel shimmered like fallen stars, casting golden light over the ballroom's sea of tuxedos and silk gowns. Lena Carter adjusted the tight collar of her black server's uniform, her fingers trembling around the silver tray of champagne flutes. Just 2 more hours. She kept her head down, weaving between laughing socialites and power-hungry investors. To them, she was invisible, just another nameless employee in a sea of luxury. Then she saw him. Her tray hit the marble floor with a deafening crash. Glass shattered. Liquid splashed across polished shoes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. But Lena couldn't move. Daniel, her husband, the man who had vanished 5 years ago, whose empty casket she had wept over, stood barely 10 feet away, alive. Time stopped. He was sharper now, his once warm brown eyes hardened into ice, his jawline shadowed by a perfectly trimmed beard. A tailored black tuxedo hugged his broad shoulders, the platinum watch on his wrist worth more than her entire life. And clinging to his arm, a stunning woman in a crimson dress, his fiancée, if the rock on her finger was any indication. Daniel, the name tore from Lena's throat, raw and desperate. His gaze snapped to her. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes, recognition, confusion, before it vanished, replaced by cold indifference. The woman beside him wrinkled her nose. "Daniel, who is that?" He didn't answer, still staring at Lena like she was a ghost. Security grabbed Lena's arms. "You're causing a scene," one hissed, dragging her back. She fought against them, her eyes locked on Daniel. "You know me, it's me, Lena," the crowd murmured. The fiancé stiffened. Daniel's frown deepened. He took a step forward, then stopped, pressing a hand to his temple as if fighting a sudden pain. "Remove her," the fiancé ordered coldly. Lena was shoved toward the service exit. At the door, she twisted back one last time. Daniel was still watching her. And for the first time in 5 years, Lena's heart cracked open with something dangerous. Hope. The alley behind the Grand Celeste was slick with rain, the stench of garbage thick in the air. Lena slumped against the damp brick wall, her uniform soaked, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Daniel was alive. Her hands shook as she fumbled for her phone, pulling up the only photo she hadn't deleted, their last anniversary. Daniel, grinning in his faded college hoodie, pressing a kiss to her cheek. The same man who just stared through her like a stranger. A notification buzzed. Breaking news: Daniel Sterling, CEO of Sterling Holdings, announces engagement to Isabella Voss. Her stomach lurched. She clicked the link. There he was, arm around the woman in red, smiling for cameras. The caption read, "After surviving a tragic plane crash 5 years ago, the reclusive billionaire has found love again." Plane crash. The words punched through her. That's what they'd called it, an accident. No body recovered, just wreckage scattered across the Atlantic. She squeezed her eyes shut, the memory raw. "5 years ago, you sure about this?" Daniel had asked, strapping into the tiny charter plane. His startup's first investor meeting, a last-minute invite from a firm in Boston. "I can cancel." Lena had kissed him. "Go, just promise you'll celebrate with me when you're rich." He'd laughed. "Deal." The call came at 3 a.m., Mrs. Carter. "There's been an incident." Present-day Lena wiped her face, rain mixing with tears. She opened a search bar. Daniel Sterling plus Voss family articles flooded the screen. Amnesiac survivor adopted by pharmaceutical mogul Richard Voss. Sterling's miraculous comeback, from coma to CEO in 2 years. Her pulse spiked. Amnesia. A car horn blared. She looked up across the street. A sleek black town car idled outside the hotel. The door opened. Daniel stepped out alone, Lena's breath caught. He scanned the sidewalk, his gaze sharp. Looking for someone, her. She lurched forward, then froze. What would she even say? "Hey, you don't remember me, but I'm your wife?" The car door slammed. Tires screeched. Gone, Lena exhaled, her fingers curling into fists. She needed proof. Sterling Holdings, 8:47 a.m. The skyscraper's lobby gleamed with cold marble. Lena clutched a fake resume, her stomach in knots. Position. The receptionist didn't look up. Executive assistant. A snort. "You're the 6th this week. Mr. Sterling eats assistants alive." Lena forced a smile. "I like a challenge." The elevator ride to the 42nd floor took forever. The doors slid open to a glass-walled office where Daniel stood, back-turned, staring at the skyline. He pivoted, their eyes locked. A flicker of something crossed his face. "You," he said slowly. Lena's mouth went dry, then his expression iced over. "You're the one who made a scene last night." She lifted her chin. "You stared at me like you knew me." A muscle twitched in his jaw. "I don't." The lie hung between them. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face tightening. "Isabella's early." Panic spiked. Lena blurted the first thing that came to mind. "You hum when you're stressed, just thought you should know." Daniel went utterly still, because it was true, a private tell, one only she knew. The silence in the office stretched like a live wire. Daniel's knuckles whitened around his phone, his gaze drilling into Lena with terrifying intensity. "You're lying," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Lena held her breath as the elevator pinged behind her. The doors slid open to reveal Isabella, her crimson nails digging into a leather portfolio. "Daniel, the board is waiting," her sentence died when she saw Lena. Recognition flashed, followed by venom. "What is she doing here?" Daniel didn't blink. "Interviewing for the assistant position." Isabella's laugh was razor-sharp. "Don't be absurd, she's clearly unstable." Lena forced steel into her voice. "I have 5 years of executive support experience." She slid her forged resume across the glass desk, deliberately placing it atop Isabella's portfolio. Daniel studied it. "You worked at Kensington and Lowe?" A gamble. The prestigious law firm had burned down last year, its records destroyed. "Yes," Lena lied smoothly. "I managed discovery for their corporate cases." Isabella snatched the paper. "This is ridiculous. Security?" "Wait." Daniel's command froze the room. His thumb brushed the edge of the resume, right over the hidden watermark Lena had embedded, their wedding date in ultraviolet ink. His breath hitched, the intercom crackled. "Mr. Sterling, your 10 a.m. is here." Decision hardened his features. "Hire her." Isabella's gasp was priceless. Day 1, 7:15 a.m. Lena arrived 90 minutes early, memorizing the office layout. Daniel's private elevator required a keycard. His filing cabinet used a biometric lock, and his desk held a single framed photo of Richard Voss. No traces of his past life. Know her. The elevator dinged. Daniel stepped out, already scowling over a contract. He froze mid-stride at the sight of her. "You're here." Disbelief colored his tone. Lena held up a steaming cup. "Black coffee, 2 sugars, just how you—" "I don't take sugar." He set the cup aside untouched. Another lie. Her chest ached. The day unfolded in a brutal rhythm, Daniel barking orders, Lena anticipating his needs before he spoke. By noon, she'd rearranged his entire schedule to accommodate a forgotten shareholder call. He noticed. Of course he did. "Who are you?" he demanded during a rare moment alone. Lena risked the truth. "Someone who knows you drink coffee with sugar when you're tired. That you tap your pen 3 times before signing anything important. That you—" The office door burst open. Isabella strode in, her gaze flickering between them. "Am I interrupting?" Daniel stepped back. "No." But his pulse jumped in his throat, a tell Lena remembered. He felt it too. Day 3, midnight. Lena worked late, compiling the evidence she'd gathered, flight logs showing Daniel's plane was sabotaged, medical records indicating forced amnesia treatments. A shadow fell across her desk. "You're still here." Daniel's voice sent shivers down her spine. He stood silhouetted in the doorway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to reveal the scar on his left wrist from the bike accident they'd had on their honeymoon. Lena's fingers itched to touch it. "Just finishing the quarterly reports," she lied, quickly minimizing the incriminating files. He moved closer, the scent of his cologne, different now, more expensive, washing over her. "You're a terrible liar." Her screen flickered. The flight logs reappeared. Daniel's breath caught. "What is this?" Panic spiked. Lena reached to shut it down, his hand closed over hers. Warm, familiar. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that single point of contact. Then the lights went out. A woman's voice hissed from the darkness. "I warned you." Something sharp pricked Lena's neck. The last thing she saw was Daniel's horrified face as the drugs dragged her under. Cold concrete bit into Lena's cheek as consciousness returned. Her wrists burned from zip ties, the metallic tang of blood coating her tongue. A single flickering bulb revealed the room, a windowless basement lined with medical equipment. Footsteps approached. Finally awake, Isabella's stilettos clicked into view, her manicured fingers clutching a syringe filled with amber liquid. "I'd say I'm sorry, but we both know you weren't just here for a job." Lena struggled upright. "Where's Daniel?" Clueless as ever. Isabella crouched, the syringe glinting. "Though you've made him questionable, that's a problem." A door creaked open. Richard Voss entered, his silver hair and tailored suit belying the cruelty in his eyes. "Is the dosage prepared?" "Yes, father." Lena's blood turned to ice. Dosage. The puzzle pieces slammed together, Daniel's headaches, his fragmented memories, the way he'd clutch his temples when she mentioned their past. "You've been drugging him," Lena spat. Richard backhanded her. Pain exploded across her jaw. "We saved him. Gave him purpose after that plane crash left him a broken mess." He grabbed her chin. "Then you waltzed in, stirring up ghosts." Isabella tapped the syringe. "This will make you forget, just like we did to him." Lena thrashed as hands pinned her down. The needle hovered, bang, the door flew off its hinges. Daniel stood framed in the doorway, his shirt torn, knuckles bloody, his gaze locked onto the syringe. What the hell is that? Isabella paled. Daniel, she's a corporate spy? Bullshit. He wrenched the syringe away, sniffing the contents, his face darkened. Midazolam. The same drug you pumped into me for years. Richard stepped forward. Son, don't. Daniel's voice cracked like a whip. He freed Lena with a pocket knife, his hands shaking against her skin. You knew, he whispered. All this time you knew me? Lena touched his scarred wrist. I never stopped looking for you. A shout echoed from upstairs. Guards, Daniel hauled her up. Run. The safe house rain sheeted against the abandoned loft's windows as Lena bandaged Daniel's split knuckles. He hadn't spoken since their escape, just stared at the wedding photo she'd kept hidden in her locket. Is this real? His voice was raw. Lena traced the image, their laughter frozen in time. We were married for 3 years. You built our dining table from scratch because we couldn't afford furniture. A tear splashed onto the locket. Daniel flinched as distant thunder rattled the windows, another storm, like the night he'd proposed. Lena remembered how he'd shouted over the rain, "Marry me." I'll love you louder than this damn sky. Now he reached for her, then stopped. What if I never remember everything? Lena caught his hand. Then we make new memories. A car screeched outside. Daniel yanked her behind him as headlights flooded the room. They found us. Headlights sliced through the rain as the black SUV skidded to a stop outside the loft. Lena counted 3 silhouettes exiting the vehicle armed, based on the glint of metal in their hands. Back door, Daniel hissed, pulling her toward the fire escape. They barely made it onto the rusted platform before the front door exploded inward. Glass shattered. Heavy boots pounded through the apartment. Lena's foot slipped on the wet metal grating. Daniel caught her waist, yanking her against his chest as a bullet whizzed past where her head had been. His heartbeat thundered against her back, fast but steady. The same rhythm she remembered from their first skydiving lesson when he'd held her just like this before jumping. Trust me, he'd asked that day. She'd answered by leaping first. Now she grabbed his hand and ran. The abandoned church, they lost their pursuers in the storm, taking refuge in a crumbling chapel on the city's edge. Water dripped through the collapsed ceiling as Daniel barricaded the door with a rotting pew. Lena wrung out her soaked hair. The Voss family owns half the police force. We can't trust anyone. Daniel paced like a caged animal, his dress shirt clinging to the hard planes of his torso. Tell me something only I would know. She didn't hesitate. You proposed with a ring pop because some pickpocket stole the real one on the subway. A strangled laugh escaped him. Christ, I remember that thief. Little kid with a Yankees cap. His smile faded. But nothing else comes, just fragments. Lightning flashed, illuminating the tattoo on his forearm, a tiny constellation she'd inked herself on their first anniversary. Lena reached out, then stopped. You got this because you said I was your North Star. His fingers brushed hers. I woke up with that memory last week, didn't know why. The air between them crackled. Rain drummed harder on the roof. A leak sprouted above them, water cascading onto Daniel's shoulders. Lena moved instinctively, dabbing his neck with her sleeve, just as she'd done 1,000 times when he'd come home drenched from his bike commute. He went utterly still. Her fingers lingered at his collarbone. Too close, too familiar. Daniel's breath hitched. Lena, the pew barricade splintered. They spun toward the sound as the door burst open, revealing not Voss's men, but a grizzled detective with a rain-slicked trench coat and a badge. Ms. Carter? The man's gaze darted to Daniel. I'm with Cold Cases. We need to talk about your husband's plane crash. The detective's flashlight beam cut through the church's gloom, illuminating the badge on his belt, Cold Case Unit 4728. Lena's pulse hammered. 5 years of unanswered questions about Daniel's crash, and now this man appeared the moment they were cornered? Too convenient. Daniel stepped in front of her, shoulders tense. Show me your credentials. The detective flipped open a wallet. Detective Bryce Holloway. I've been investigating Sterling's crash as a potential homicide. His eyes flicked to Lena. Your wife's been helping my team. A lie. Lena had never spoken to this man. She opened her mouth to protest crash. The stained glass window shattered as 3 black-clad figures repelled inside. Isabella's personal security team. Holloway drew his gun. Down. Daniel dragged Lena behind a pillar as bullets peppered the pews. Holloway returned fire, dropping one attacker with a shot to the knee. Move. Daniel shoved Lena toward a side exit just as Isabella's voice rang out from the doorway. Daniel, darling, running away with the help, how common. She stood framed in the storm, clutching a manila envelope. Her perfect blonde hair stayed miraculously dry beneath a designer umbrella. Daniel froze. You sent armed men after us. After her. Isabella tossed the envelope at his feet. Photos spilled out, grainy surveillance shots of Lena meeting with Richard Voss. Your little wife has been working with my father all along. Lena's stomach dropped. Those are doctored, Isabella smirked. Check the timestamp, last Thursday while you were in Tokyo. Daniel lifted a photo, Lena shaking hands with Richard outside Sterling Holdings. His knuckles whitened. Explain. The air left Lena's lungs. The image was flawless, because it was real. He cornered me in the parking garage, threatened me to stay away from you. Liar. Isabella produced a voice recorder. Richard's voice hissed from it. The deal stands, Lena. You deliver Daniel, we pay your debts. A perfect fake. Daniel's face went terrifyingly blank. He turned to Lena. Is there anything true about you? Holloway stepped between them. Sterling, think. Daniel grabbed the detective's gun and fired at the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Everyone out. Now. Isabella's smirk widened as she sauntered away. Her goons dragged their injured comrade after her. Holloway hesitated. You're making a mistake. Go. Daniel's voice cracked like ice. The moment the door shut, he pinned Lena against the pillar, his breath hot on her face. Last chance, tell me one true thing. Tears blurred her vision. She reached into her boot and pulled out the one thing she'd risked everything to protect, their wedding video on a thumb drive. Watch it, then decide. A muscle jumped in Daniel's jaw. He snatched the drive. If this is another trick, sirens wailed outside. Holloway must have called backup. Daniel pocketed the drive and stepped back, his eyes glacial. Run, Lena, because if this is fake, I will find you. The safe house reeked of mildew and stale coffee. Daniel slammed the thumb drive into his laptop, his fingers trembling as he clicked play. Static, then laughter. His own face filled the screen, younger and softer, holding a giggling Lena in a sunflower field, a homemade wedding video. You're crying? On screen, Lena wiped his tears with her veil. Because you're mine now. His past self kissed her fiercely as their guests cheered. Daniel's chest caved in. The footage kept playing their first dance, Marry Me by Train, Lena feeding him cake with her hands instead of a fork, their private vows whispered between kisses. I promise to remember, his past self murmured against Lena's lips, even if the whole world forgets. A gunshot of pain exploded behind Daniel's eyes. Flashbacks detonated like grenades, Lena crying over a pregnancy test. Him sanding that goddamn dining table until dawn. The plane's engine failing, his last thought. Lena, he gasped, clutching his skull as the memories burned their way home. The laptop pinged. A security alert, his penthouse motion sensors triggered. Someone was inside. Daniel grabbed his gun and ran toward the one person who'd fought for him when he couldn't remember his own name. The docks 3:17 a.m. Lena hunched behind a rusted shipping container, her breath fogging in the cold. She'd seen the news. Daniel had publicly cut ties with the Voss family. That meant he'd watched the video, that he remembered. Boots splashed through puddles nearby, not cops, professionals. She pressed deeper into the shadows just as a black SUV skidded to a stop 10 feet away. The door flew open. Daniel. Blood streaked his temple, his dress shirt torn where barbed wire had raked his ribs. He scanned the darkness, wild-eyed. Lena, raw desperation cracked his voice. She nearly sobbed. Then movement behind him. A sniper's laser dot danced across his back. Lena lunged. DOWN? The shot grazed her shoulder as she tackled Daniel behind the container. Warm blood seeped through her shirt. Daniel's hands shook as he checked the wound. Christ, Lena, told you, I'd take a bullet for you. She forced a grin, repeating her wedding toast. His breath caught. He crushed her against his chest, his heartbeat galloping against her cheek. You're real. Another shot ricocheted off metal. Daniel snarled, returning fire blindly. We need extraction. Now, Lena blinked. Headlights flared. A motorcycle screeched to a halt beside them, ridden by Detective Holloway. Took you long enough, Daniel growled, boosting Lena onto the bike. Holloway grinned. Had to verify you weren't still brainwashed, Sterling. A bullet shattered the bike's mirror. Go! Daniel vaulted on behind Lena, locking one arm around her waist as they peeled into the night. The wind stole her gasp as he pressed his lips to her bleeding shoulder, then her neck, then finally her mouth in a kiss that tasted like homecoming and gunpowder. Never again, he vowed against her lips. I remember now. The neon on air sign burned red as Lena adjusted her earpiece behind the studio curtain. Through the glass, she watched Daniel straighten his tie, the same navy blue one he'd worn to their courthouse wedding. Detective Holloway handed her a flash drive. All the evidence. Flight logs, medical records, even the drugged coffee receipts. His grin was sharp. Burn them alive. A producer counted down, 5 minutes to broadcast. Daniel turned suddenly, meeting Lena's eyes through the glass. His lips moved silently. Ready, Mrs. Sterling? Her heart flipped. He hadn't called her that in 5 years. She nodded just as Isabella's shrill voice cut through the studio. Daniel, what is the circus? Lena peeked out. Isabella stood in the doorway, flawless in white Chanel, but her manicured nails were chipped from clawing at the paparazzi outside. Daniel didn't blink. Justice. Richard Voss stormed in behind his daughter, face purple with rage. You ungrateful bastard, we made you. The camera crew froze. Daniel smiled, cold and lethal. Funny, I remember you breaking me. He tapped his temple. The drugs didn't stick, Richard. The producer hissed, we're live in 30. Isabella lunged for the control panel. Lena intercepted her, twisting the blonde's wrist until she whimpered. America's waiting. The countdown began. 10-9-8, Richard pulled a pistol from his suit. 7-6-5, Holloway tackled him as the gun fired straight into the ceiling. 4-3-2, Daniel straightened his jacket as the camera light turned green. Good evening, he said smoothly to millions of viewers. My name is Daniel Sterling. 5 years ago, these people tried to murder me. Tonight, you'll see proof. Lena hit play on the evidence reel. By midnight, Voss crimes trended worldwide. Lena watched from Daniel's penthouse as police swarmed Voss Pharma headquarters. On TV, Isabella screamed at reporters while Richard was walked in handcuffs. Daniel emerged from the shower, towel slung low on his hips, water glistening on the scars she knew by heart. Happy? He murmured, pulling her against his damp chest. Lena traced the bullet graze on his ribs, new but already healing. Not yet. His brow furrowed. She reached into her pocket and slid her ring onto the coffee table, the original wedding band he'd lost to that pickpocket. Daniel's breath stopped. Found it in Isabella's jewelry box, Lena admitted. She kept it like a trophy. He lifted the ring with reverent fingers, then, to her shock, dropped to one knee. Lena Carter, his voice broke. Marry me, again. The penthouse door burst open. Holloway stood there, panting. Isabella's gone, and she took the company jet. Daniel stood slowly, sliding the ring onto Lena's finger. Then let's finish this. The Caribbean sun burned white-hot as Lena crouched behind a palm tree, binoculars trained on the private runway where Isabella's jet idled. Beside her, Daniel adjusted his earpiece, sweat glistening on his bare torso. 3 guards at the stairs, Lena murmured. She's running scared. Daniel's jaw tightened. She should be. Detective Holloway's voice crackled through their comms. Local authorities are 5 minutes out. Don't do anything stupid. Lena and Daniel exchanged a glance. Too late. They moved in sync, Daniel flanking left while Lena disabled the nearest guard with a well-aimed coconut to the skull. Gunfire erupted as they breached the tarmac. Isabella appeared at the jet's doorway, a duffel bag of cash in one hand and a pistol in the other. You'll never prove anything, she shrieked, firing wildly. Lena dove behind a fuel truck as bullets pinged off metal. Daniel wasn't so lucky. A shot grazed his thigh, sending him sprawling. Isabella laughed, climbing the stairs. Goodbye, Daniel. Lena's vision went red. She sprinted, leaping onto the moving stairway just as it retracted. Isabella's eyes widened as Lena tackled her into the cabin. The pistol skittered away. They rolled across the floor, Isabella clawing at Lena's face until crack. Lena's fist connected with Isabella's perfect nose. Blood splattered across the cream leather seats. Outside, sirens wailed. Daniel limped up the stairs, panting. You okay? Lena straddled a sobbing Isabella, holding up the duffel bag. Just retrieving our wedding gift. Inside, the stolen Voss Pharma documents and Lena's original wedding album. 1 month later, Sterling Manor sunlight streamed through the garden arch as Lena walked toward Daniel in a simple white dress, her bare feet crushing petals underfoot. No guests. No cameras. Just them and the justice of the peace who'd married them the first time. Daniel's hands shook as he slid both rings onto her finger, the lost original and its replacement. I vow to remember, he whispered against her lips. Lena kissed him deeply before murmuring, prove it. With a grin, Daniel swept her into his arms and carried her toward the manor, stopping abruptly at the dining room. There, gleaming under afternoon light, stood the table he'd built for them a lifetime ago. Rescued from storage, freshly sanded and stained, Lena's breath caught. Daniel nuzzled her neck. Welcome home, Mrs. Sterling.